What is up, guys? Thanks for stopping by. Today, we are going to go over another FreeCodeCamp basic algorithm scripting challenge. This challenge is called Confirm the Ending. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into the instructions because really this challenge isn't that complicated once we know exactly what function to use in order to get the solution. Basically, we have to check if the string that's passed into our function ends with a given target that is also passed into our function. And it says here that although we can use the function that is known as ends with, they don't want us to use that because it is kind of a simpler way around actually solving the challenge, and they want us to kind of use more logic and just to get a better understanding of algorithms. So we're not going to be able to use that one, but there are some other functions that we can use that might take a little more work but can still get us the same result. So enough of that, let's go ahead and jump into the code. As you can see, I already have the solution um, fixed here. I have it already marked up. But I'm just going to go ahead and walk through how exactly I got this solution. And we can see here that our confirm ending function takes in two arguments, one that's called string or str, another that is called the target. And if we come down here to where our function is being called for the first time, we see that the string argument is being passed in as bastion and the target is being passed in as one letter, which is in. So how can we check to see if this string ends with the target that's being passed in? Well, we can obviously use some type of condition. We can use an if else statement that will say, hey, if this equals this, then return this. If it doesn't, return that. And you can see that that is what I did. But before we can get to that point, we have to actually figure out how to take the ending of our string and turn it into something that we'll be able to test against our target to see if it matches. And if you take a look over here, they have something in the helpful link section, some functions that we could use to test to see if our word or our string actually ends with certain characters. And those methods or functions are substring and substring. Well, substr. um, they're kind of the same, do the same thing, but differently. And as I was reading over what or how they're used, I decided to go with the substr function as opposed to the direct substring function. And I did that because this seemed a little bit simpler, I thought. And as I was reading through how it's used and what it's used for, there's actually a tip right here that said exactly what we needed to do for this challenge, and that was to extract the characters from the end of a string. We have to use a negative start number. And that was literally what we needed to do. We need to extract the characters from the end of our string so that we can put them in a variable and then test to see if they're equal to our target. So, in order to do that, I went ahead and I created a variable. I named it extracted string, but you can name it whatever you want. And then I took a hold of my string that was being passed in, and I used the dot operator to call the substr function. Now, if we look back over here to what exactly this function needs to get the characters from the end of the string, it says we need to use a negative start number. Okay, that's kind of easy enough. We have to be, it has to be a negative number, but where do we actually get that number from? We don't know what target is going to be passed in or how many words or letters will be in that target. We don't know how many the string will actually have. So how can we figure out how much or how big of a number we need to put inside the substring function in order to use it? One way, it took me kind of a while to think about it, but I figured that the target is what we want to match against. So this basically, we have to have the same number of elements in this target to to make sure that it matches with our string. And we have to make sure that each of the letters inside of that target are the same as the ones that end our string. So really all we have to do is get the amount of elements or letters inside of our target, and we can do that using the dot length function. And it will return for us the actual number of letters in our target argument. Great, and then we just have to make sure it's a negative so that it can chop off the same number of elements from our word. And once it does that, we'll have the same number of in our string and the same number in our target to test against. So now extracted string is basically going to be equal to the same number of elements from our target. So for instance, if we use the substring function on the word bastion and we pass in the negative target dot length, which in this case the target is the letter N, so target dot length will be equal to -1. So if we use the substring on bastion, we're going to say I want you to extract -1, and that's going to be the end, one character from the end of the word, and that is our N, the letter N. And let's just use another one down here because I know this is kind of confusing. I'll take, let's see, the second one here. If we were to use, let's say, I'm gonna put it over here. If we were to use confirm ending, then this one right here will be our string, and the second argument will be our target. The same thing goes. So if we were to take the string Connor and substring it from negative target dot length, which in this case would again be -1, it would take off the -1 element from the word Connor, which in this case would be the letter R, and extracted string would hold the letter R, and target would still be the letter N, and it would go down here and it would test it. It would say, is the letter R the same as the letter N? And in this case, since they're not the same, it will return false. So hopefully that kind of clarifies what this is doing. It is a little bit complicated, but once you start to use it more, you'll get a hang of what exactly it's doing and why we have to use a negative in order to take off the end of a string. Because if this were a positive, it will start from the beginning as opposed to the end. And since we want to see if the ending is the same, we have to use a negative. If you have any questions about how I got this solution, just go ahead and leave a comment and I will get back to you soon. Other than that, though, hopefully this helped in some way. And as always, subscribe and have a great day.